So I will look for that. All right, so we'll go ahead and call this workshop to order. First, I will call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order on today, Thursday, May 7th, 2020.
I will call the Finance Committee to order as well.
Okay. And before we get started, once again, I need to just read a statement about the remote participation. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this combined meeting of the Town of Adams Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. We have posted today's agenda, which included the call-in information for today's meeting. A reminder that persons who would like to participate can find that information on our website for this meeting and for all of our subsequent meetings. Despite our best efforts, if we are not able to provide for real-time access, a recording of this meeting will be posted or available by request. Tonight's combined meeting, again, will be treated as a workshop for both the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, and no vote on the budget items presented this evening is expected. If a vote is needed for anything that comes before us this evening, it would be conducted as a roll call vote by the chair of the respective board or committee. After each section of the budget is presented this evening, we will open up for questions and comments. First to the Board of Selectmen, followed by questions and comments by the Finance Committee. We'll unmute everybody after that and see if there are any final questions for that particular budget section before we move on. Before speaking, if I don't call your name or Tim doesn't call your name, we ask that you state your name so that Deb Dunlap, who is assisting us with minutes this evening, would be able to capture that for the record. And if there are any questions after tonight's budget workshop, we ask that you submit your questions to your respective chair in writing, and the chair will work with staff to get you the answers that you are looking for. And I think, Tim, you had a few things you wanted to add.
Yeah, all I wanted to do is remind the members of my board that this is really our only opportunity to, that we're going to be able to interact with the department heads. They will not be called back to a meeting when we do take votes. So if you have questions, tonight's a good opportunity, and at all these meetings, as well as if something comes up after, please email me any questions. I will get them to the correct department and then bring a response back for the entire board at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that does it for what we need to do for administrative items, and I think we can get right into the budget today. So see, we're through those hurdles a little earlier tonight, so maybe we'll get done a little earlier than last evening. So Jay, do you want to?
We'll kick it off.
Kick off. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am supposed to just do one more roll call for attendance purposes. Thank goodness for joint sessions. So from the Board of Selectmen, Jim Bush, are you here?
Yes, here.
Thank you. John Duvall?
Here.
Rick Blanchard?
Yes, here.
Thank you. And Joe Novak?
Present.
Thank you. I will go ahead and mute all of them. I'm going to go in order that they show up on my screen, sorry. Jay Meswar, are you here?
Here.
Thank you. Michelle Butler? Here. Charles Foster? I can unmute you.
Here. It's Charles
There you are.
Foster.
Thank you. Carol?
Here.
Brian Johnson?
Here.
Amy,
Here.
Rachel,
Here.
Craig,
Here.
Sarah,
Here.
John Cowie.
Here.
I think I have everybody. I've unmuted all of you. If I did not call your name, will you just say that you're here? Sounds like everybody's there. And Deb Dunlap is on the line too. I didn't call her name.
So Deb, for your minutes, note that Ellen Smigel and Butch Para are not in attendance.
Okay. I'll go back to muting all of you, and I will turn it over to Jay now.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to start by looking at page 71 in your budget binders. Tonight's first victim is Erica, our Council on Aging Director. As always, our budget chapters are based on personal services, operating expenses, and capital, if any. On page 71, you'll find the Council on Aging Personnel Services Budget Request for fiscal 2021, showing a 3% increase. Detail for that can be found on page 72. Our quick staffing overview of the Council on Aging as it stands and as proposed in this year's budget is Erica as our director. We have Barb Proper, who's our outreach coordinator. We have an admin assistant. We have several van drivers, and then we have a line item for substitute van drivers to handle any vacancies that are needed, plus a very minimum overtime allowance in that category as well. So that's a quick glance at our personnel services for Council on Aging. On page 73, you'll find the operating expenses, pretty much the same as last year, no significant change there at all. And then also included within the Council on Aging conversation this evening, if you advance to page 91, I think this probably should remain under Public Buildings, Property Management, but nonetheless we'll take it out of order tonight because it's on the agenda that way. The Visitor Center, which serves a dual purpose for both housing the Council on Aging as well as providing visitor center functions. You'll see that that section of the budget is also line item as well, $15,850. That gives us a snapshot as to what the appropriation request is for Council on Aging, and we can turn it over for any questions. Also, I just want to make one note that this is not the entire funding picture for Council on Aging. Erica can explain that she has access to a few other grant opportunities as well in the normal course that we're able to augment our services with, and she can answer any questions about that or any other questions about the department. So, Christine, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Unless, Erica, did you have anything you wanted to add before we open it up for questions and comments?
I was going to just provide everybody with an overview sort of what we've been up to. So please let Christine know if you're having a hard time hearing me because I can't see the screen. So I just wanted to give everybody an idea of what we've been up to as an essential department for the town during this virus, and I'll try to keep it brief but concise. We have a team of volunteers who have been continuing to make wellness calls. We've also been able to participate in getting awarded a $4,000 grant to put together baskets that we're sort of calling Stay Active baskets in a way to address a more homebound senior population that does not have access or really extended use of technology services. So we're putting things in there like puzzles, brain games, a physical activity booklet, so things that they can do at home to keep themselves active and physically engaged, informational flyers, hand sanitizers. We've been able to get almost everything from that from local shops, so we were happy to help support local shops for that as well. We are hoping to put together, I'm hoping to put together some videos for people online just to keep them engaged in the way of offering information around fall prevention information as well as all the different services that the Senior Center offers. I think it's a good opportunity to try to put a video like that out so people can get a better sense of everything that it is that we do. We continue to provide some food security. It's a really major chunk of what we're able to offer. We continue to do our mobile food bank where we're managing over 40 volunteers and trying to still take care of all the parameters that we have around social distancing and masking and things like that. Our highest household served has been 377 just a few weeks back. And surprisingly, most of that, at least 75% of that were older adults. So that was pretty surprising to me. We continue to do our Brown Bag program, which is a delivery of non-perishable foods to about 60 to 70 older adults in the community, and right now what we're doing is delivering that to them so that they don't have to come to the senior to get that. We continue to provide as well our lunch program, so we're doing a more grab-and-go style. Our numbers seem to stay the same. Just today we had 38 meals that we delivered, and we were able to celebrate Mother's Day with them and put together just a nice little bag of gold chocolate coins with a little note. Your weight is, what does it say? You're worth your weight in gold. Happy Mother's Day. So some nice things like that that people really were appreciative of. We continue to participate in weekly community stakeholder calls, Zoom meetings with Massachusetts Council on Aging, with Department of Transitional Assistance. So we're engaged in a lot of those, a lot of that presence that the community organizations are currently having via Zoom meetings. We're still processing SNAP applications, so we're helping people enroll in SNAP applications. We're helping to explain why there's an increase in their allotment. We're doing fuel assistance applications still and emergency grants. We administer an emergency grant for community members right now up to $1,000. So we have several applications coming in for that to help people who have been affected. And we're still offering our transportation. While our numbers have dwindled, we are still providing rides for prescription pickup and grocery pickup to a handful of community members. We do currently have 3 van drivers who are laid off and 2 part-time drivers who obviously aren't laid off but just aren't being utilized right now. Substitute drivers rather. And we also created a safety protocol for transportation with guidance from Northern Berkshire Transit, and we were able to share that both across the state and within Berkshire County for Massachusetts Council on Aging in the way of how they should be providing transportation to elders. So we're pretty happy to be able to put that together. So those are just some of the things that we've been able to do over the last couple months while still working both remotely from home and limited hours in the office. We had a pretty amazing year lined up for services and events, and obviously that fell by the wayside, but we still have them on the back burner for when we can get going again. Before I jumped into some funding services for us, I was wondering if anybody had any questions about any of the things that I just said, because it was a bit of information.
Sure. So we can start with, I'll unmute the Board of Selectmen first. So the Board of Selectmen have been unmuted. Does anyone have any questions for Erica at this time? John, do you have a question?
No questions. Thank you, Erica, for the overview.
Jim?
I have no questions.
Okay. Joe?
Just, Erica, thanks for all you do, and the elderly need us more than ever at this point in time.
Thank you, Joe. Rick?
No questions?
Okay, thank you. I'll switch over to the Finance Committee and see if there are any questions for Erica at this point. Jay, do you have any questions for Erica at this point?
No question, just a comment here. Yeah, we really appreciate everything you guys are doing for the elderly community in the town. We know it's a big section of the town overall, and I've heard quite a few things from the community, people that are really appreciative of all the work you guys have been doing. By trade, I'm a physical therapist, so if you want any help at all with getting exercises for balance or exercises for people that are stuck at home, I'm willing to help if that's something you guys are interested in.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We, what we ended up utilizing for this particular basket was the Matter of Balance program that we offer. So we're able to take the textbook photocopies right out of that with a welcome to them to participate in the program once we're able to do that again. So I'll make a note of that. Thank you, Jay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, do you have anything for Erica at this point?
No questions, but same as everyone else. Thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing for the community.
Keep it going. This is really good for my self-esteem.
Now you know why I declare you essential.
And that's
Very good. Charles, any questions or comments?
No questions.
Okay. Carol?
No questions, Erica, but thanks a lot for all you do.
Excellent. Brian?
No questions.
Okay. Amy?
No questions, thank you.
Rachel?
No, like what everyone else is saying, and the town is very, very lucky to have an Erica.
Very nice.
Thank you. I have a good team.
Sarah?
No questions. Thanks, Erica. Keep it up. You and Barbara, a good team.
Craig?
No questions.
Okay. John Cowie?
Yes, Erica, good evening. Since the numbers that we have in front of us right now are dated March 25th, and I have no idea when we're going to get when we're going to get the vote on the articles and that, is it possible that you could update the 2020 actual expended lines for us, so we would see that?
No, Mary Beverly will do that for the entire budget at some point.
She will. Will it be updated though? So, because in other words, we're not going to have her back, right?
Mary? Or Erica?
No, you won't.
Erica's not going to be there.
You wouldn't have me back, but if anything, I could touch upon a couple of the line items, but without having the software in front of me, I wouldn't be able to pull that up.
Okay. No, I understand. Okay, that was my only request. Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Okay, so I'm going to let Erica continue, and then we'll open it up for questions again at the end of the next part.
So what you don't necessarily see here on my budget, but I think most of you, I know there's a few new names here. The Council on Aging budget has a $25,000 allocation that we pull off of to offset the numbers that you see here. So the Council on Aging receipt elder fund budget is what we pull that $25,000 from every year to offset the cost of the municipality for our staff. And we feed that account with a few different ways. We feed it with 5 different ways actually. Van ridership donations that we get in, administrative fees from that emergency grant that I talked about earlier. So we take 10% off of that emergency grant we get. Comes out to be just a few $1,000s. We are partners with DTA and SNAP, so we receive a reimbursement for the amount of applications that we process as a result of that partnership. So we pull money in from there. We pull money in from our contract that we have with the Breen Center to provide transportation for the Adult Day Health Center. And we also pull in money from BRTA for providing transportation to the ADA community in Adams. So unfortunately, right now, our van ridership is a bit down as a result of not being, just people not going as many places as they normally would. So our donations are down for our van ridership, and there has been no adult day health transportation, which brought in several $100s a month. So we haven't had that. So income over the last couple of months has been down. But on a positive note, our account is pretty healthy right now. That account has a little over $57,000 in it. So it's healthy. We'll easily be able to make that $25,000 allocation to our municipal services out of that account. And we're confident that we'll be able to build that back up despite the slowdown in deposits that we've had. We also receive state funding still through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. We just call it the Formula Grant. And with that formula grant, which is, I think it's about $27,000. Actually, I do have it right here. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we pull from that $6,000 to put towards our outreach workers' insurance, and that also isn't reflected in the budget. So in the budget, you'll see for her health insurance, it's a little over, it's about $6,100. We put $6,000 towards that, so that doesn't end up being that much of a cost to the municipality. Other things that we pay for but don't offset necessarily the budget that we have, but in areas that we need more funding for, the grant that we receive puts $5,000 towards client transportation. So that might be tires for the van or gas in excess of what the municipality gives us. We have just under $4,000 for equipment and furnishings. We were able to purchase all new chairs for the visitor center with that funding. We have licenses and dues that we have to be partaken, and that comes out of our grant. Some conference and educational events that we go to, that comes out of the grant. A very much needed volunteer appreciation recognition that is funded through out of the grant. A few $1,000s for events that we have in the way of physical activities, so a Tai Chi program. We've partnered with Cutting Edge as well to do some events, exercise events for seniors. And then, like I said, the $6,000, as I mentioned, for our outreach worker. And that all ends up being $26,160 that we receive in that state funding. So that is all expenses that the senior center needs to operate, but we're able to access from other funds. Let's see, we also maintain a gift account where different donations will come into, general donations, and that's what helps fund our social activities, specialty items, whether it just be decorations or things like the gold coins we purchased for Mother's Day. We purchased a newspaper for the senior center. We have a computer lab. All expenses for the computer lab comes out of our gift account. Different musical entertainment that comes in, things like that. And that budget's pretty healthy right now, so we're able to utilize those fundings for that. Other than that, I just have a few, I guess my last sort of comment before I open up questions about the particular budget is we do still have this, the senior center does still have some concerns coming in. Obviously, it's not anything we're going to be able to address in the near future, but it's not enough room for our programming. I'd be remiss not to mention that. We're still married to that one room, that multi-purpose room. Anytime we need to bring events in, it requires a great deal of breakdown, and the opportunities, the window is very limited for when we can have particular programming come in there. We definitely have a demand for more space, and a handful of programs actually this previous year had to shut down prior to the social distancing requirements. They were long-standing wellness programs. It was sad to see them dwindle, and as a result, it left a great deal of people, a great number of people who expressed sadness and frustration with us in a sense that they were feeling that their need was not necessarily important and that there was a lack of care about offering them space and where they could exercise and stay healthy in the way that the senior center could offer them. So I don't want to end on that, but it is, you know, we had a handful of people that came to us and were sad to see it. It was tough to find a different location for some of our exercise programs to go to, just because of different insurance things or rent requirements or whatever that we just didn't have. Every year, we gain more and more popularity with the increasing numbers.
That's good. Jay, did you have anything you needed to add? Okay. So I will first go to the Board of Selectmen, see if there are any additional questions or comments. Just as a reminder, we're looking at pages 71, 72, 73, and 91 in your budget book. And any questions about the additional funding resources that Erica just commented on. I will start with John and see if there's any questions about those numbers.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
No questions, thank you.
Joe?
Nothing?
Okay, Rick?
I have nothing.
All right. Sorry, Jay, you're at the top of the page. Anything?
Yep, no questions here.
Okay. Michelle?
No questions.
Charles?
No questions.
Carol?
I'm good, thanks.
Brian?
Yeah, the only question I had was on the visitor center, the elevator maintenance of 4153. That was 54,390. It came in at 4,153.
I think you jumped to page 91, right?
Yep,
Yeah, page 91, correct.
Page 91, Brian, yep, and you're talking about the elevator maintenance, is that what you said?
Yes.
You're a little quiet, so
Yes, can you hear me?
now we can, yep.
All right,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it was $4,153. Now, I'm on a finance committee for All Saints Episcopal Church. We have an elevator there, and that goes to the basement and 3 floors overhead, and we only spend about $25.69 a year on it. So this is almost double for the first quarter.
No, I'll answer that.
Oh, okay.
What's the nature of your contract? This contract considers its municipal function. It's a public building. It's with Otis Elevator, and it consumes all of the consumable parts. So when the inspection is performed by the elevator company, Otis, and they come and inspect it, they automatically repair parts. Those parts costs are included in the contract rather than paying a la carte per part, which was our older contract. So we renegotiated the contract from Bay State Elevator, I would say probably last June or July, and we were able to get a better contract that included consumable parts for almost the same price as Bay State.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
You'd answer that better than I would.
Amy?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Rachel?
No questions.
Sarah?
All set, thank you.
Craig?
Yes, I have a question. It's for Mr. Green. I've been on this finance committee for quite a long time now, and since I've been on it, the visitor center heating has been problematic. What's the status of the heating system over there? At different times, we've been told that we were going to have to, at some point, invest a lot of money to change it over, and then for the past couple of years, we haven't heard anything about it. Can you tell me what the status is?
Yeah, it's the same, Craig. You're absolutely right. It's got the geothermal system in it. It's really a constant battle, particularly during the change of the seasons. It's a unique system. It requires a lot of maintenance. In fact, Mr. Tober might be able to speak to a little bit of it, but we dusted off a plan that was, I want to say, about 3 or 4 years old, probably what you're referring to, in order to change over the system to something, frankly, a little bit more conventional to eliminate those maintenance costs, and it's still well within 6 figures. So that's on our aspirational capital improvement plan, along with a boiler replacement for the library. What we've done this year is we've cleaned out some condensate drains on the ceiling-based units. We've had a couple of the filter lines, with geothermal. The problem is that the wells that were drilled, they're sandy. So it fills up periodically with sand and clogs the system. So we've had that redone. So there's been a couple things this year, but status quo, it's still problematic.
Craig, if you remember, about 3 years ago, that's when, rather than taking that route of replacing the whole system, they put that filtration system in. And
Yes. That's why I'm asking the question.
For here or there, there's been still some issues with it, not functioning at 100%, but it's been a lot better since we put that filter in. It certainly bought us some time. The erosion that has happened in that filter, surprisingly, we've had some leaks here and there that they had to have come in and patched up and fixed. So, but for the most part, it's been okay. to say the least, so.
It's satisfactory.
Okay.
It's not fixed by any means, but.
What we have
That's that's a question I had, that we are still having problems, but it's limping along for the time being.
We're managing
I
it,
guess
put it
that
that way.
answers what I needed to know.
I can tell you though, Craig, too, about the building, we've just recently put in a new telephone system. The telephone system failed, so we had to put in a new telephone system over there. The fire alarm annunciator and the wet, fire suppression system had problems. Those were original to the building. We've had to replace those as well for safety. Some of the locking mechanisms on the doors, because it's a very easy building to access, we've had some trouble with that. So we've installed an electronic locking mechanism over there for better access control, as well. So the building is kind of reaching that age of, some of those systems are reaching the end of their useful life, and we've had to repair them. So we have been putting money into the building, but that's probably the biggest one left, is that HVAC system.
Yeah. And
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't, before I guess you jump any further, Christina, I hadn't mentioned on the particular visitor center budget, the people, everybody will see under the trash, there's been an increase, quite a substantial increase from 2020's actual budget for the trash removal. There's an increase in electrical services as well, and the electrical, the only reason there was some damage to some of the poles outside, the electrical poles, so we had to get those fixed. There was some vandalism that happened on the poles that line the visitor center. And then the trash has just been a lot of the events that happen at the senior center, or at the visitor center rather. We tried to increase that budget a little bit, but had to bring it back down to level funding. So I think you'll continue to see, I already know that line item is.
It's just a dumpster cost.
It's just a dumpster cost.
So when it overfills, rather than paying for 2 dumps, we tell Kyle to take the trash to the transfer station.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you,
Good.
Craig. John Cowie, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. So that concludes the budget discussion on the Council on Aging and the Adams Visitor Center. I've unmuted all of you once again. Are there any final questions or comments for Erica before we let her go?
Brian Johnson here.
Thank you, Brian.
Are you currently using solar panels on the building?
Solar panels?
Yes.
So the visitor center is funded off of the solar lot that's by the transfer station.
Okay, so you're using the solar power from the transfer station, correct?
Yes, from the I don't know necessarily what the lot there is called, but it's the solar panels that are right next to the transfer station, and we go in and out between building up units and having to pay a bill. So sometimes there's a bill, sometimes there isn't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is Joe Novak. Just one quick update with that heating system. Basically speaking, geothermal is a very good heat source. But in the case of the visitor center, was alluded a little bit by Jay, that when the wells were dug, usually a good geothermal outlet is a lake or a pond or a water body that's calm. What had happened with the visitor center is that the water is running. It's the ground. It's kind of like groundwater, and it fluctuates. And particularly during low times, there is a lot of action, turbidity in the water, and therefore you're getting the clog ups in your filters in the exchange units in the heater.
All right, thank you, Joe. Any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll close this portion of this budget and thank Erica for her time this evening.
Thank you.
And for all of your hard work.
My pleasure.
Excellent. And while Erica's moving, we'll ask Robert to come sit at the table, and if you want to wipe anything down, there are some wipes, but I think we should be good. And we have with us now, we are going to go through the wastewater treatment budget as part of the next item. So we do have with us our new DPW Director, Robert Tilber, who just sat down, and we have with us our plant supervisor. Superintendent, I'm sorry. I just call you Super, that's all, right?
Oh, God.
Bob.
Depending on how he performs tonight, it might be super.
Okay. Bob Brumble. But Jay, I will turn things over to you to go ahead and get us started.
Sure, thank you. So this is our first chapter within the Department of Public Works. We're going to turn to page 110 within your budget books. And we'll start with wastewater treatment. Wastewater division is within DPW. Mr. Tober is our brand new DPW director. Under Robert's supervision, we have all the other divisions, vehicle and equipment maintenance, buildings and facilities, highways, and of course, the wastewater division. Wastewater division is led by Superintendent Rumble, who's been, about how many years you have over at that plant?
5.
Yeah.
Oh, total? So 20.
About 20 years, right. So on page 110, you're going to see is the overall wastewater treatment budget. This is a rather large line item budget. This year is $357,475 as a requested appropriation. There are some significant increases in this budget, and I'm going to let Bob go through them as he sees fit, along with any questions that either respective board has. I'd like also at this point for you to turn to page 113 of your budget book. You'll see that that is the capital budget request for this year. This year we're looking for $75,000 to replace the control system of the plant. Mr. Rumble will also go through that. You'll see on the capital needs study that $50,000, that's what we discussed last night. Thankfully, we've received that community compact grant, which will fund that, so that will be coming off the capital budget request. However, that $75,000 will remain on there. The labor costs for wastewater treatment will be dealt with under DPW administration, which is under the General Department of Public Works line items. So we'll stick for right now with wastewater treatment. I can tell you, Bob, our staffing at the plant, just as a quick overview, is a total of 7, including yourself.
Correct.
We have 1 vacancy at this time.
Yes.
With that job posted for being refilled. In terms of the staffing at the plant, just so everyone knows, that is not a flexible number. We are mandated by the DEP to maintain 7 certified operators at the plant, and they all have to possess a variety of different licensing to perform the functions at wastewater. So that gives you a quick snapshot of the plant, and we'll turn it over to Bob. I don't know if you wanted to hit any particular line items. Some of the items we'll focus on is chemical treatment, or process chemicals. There are 2 concepts that I want everyone to keep in mind. Each year we have an escalating cost of process chemicals simply because of the cost of them. The plant was built to handle a certain flow. We measure that in million gallons per day. However, thankfully, we haven't had to process as much as we once did, except during COVID-19. So although the plant physical infrastructure can handle the added flow, what we're dealing with now is just a natural increase in cost of process chemicals for our budgeting purposes. But right now, we also have additional costs within fiscal year 20 because we're handling more wastewater coming into the plant because everyone's home. Those costs, although under fiscal 20, we're going to do our best to get those costs allocated under the emergency reimbursement provisions, because that is a directly related cost that has to do with COVID-19. We would not have that cost, not a budgeted cost. We would not have that cost had it not been for COVID-19. Therefore, we believe that those costs can be reimbursed. We're going to attempt to do that as well. So just as we're talking tonight, just keep in mind, and Bob may mention it, we're talking specifically about why we're looking at 2021 appropriation, which is none of this is directly related to COVID-19. Right. We're handling that in a different accounting fashion. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob if you want to go through I think it's important to have Bob go through first before we ask any questions, just because I know there's some changes.
Yeah, sure. Just to reiterate what Jay was talking, since the COVID-19 at beginning of March, our flow has increased to 1.2 million gallons extra a day. So we're up to like 3.4 when we were just doing like 1.7, 1.8. So just to give you an idea, like Jay say, it's almost a quarter of more of chemicals. I mean, the supply and demand from all the other states are just as equal. I just had a little problem with one of our chemical suppliers in New York because New York is trying to buy up all the chemical for their own wastewater treatment plants and anybody who needed the chemical. But being an outstanding relationship with that company for the sodium bisulfite, they were flexible and they ended up giving me 5 totes, which we only needed 3, but they said, hey, here's 5 because we know we're going to keep buying it up. So with that, basically, like Jay said, the chemicals are increasing. Right here, the sodium hypochlorite, they gave me a letter here. It's going to be going up 6 cents a gallon. We order 4,400 gallons at a time. You do the math, it's a little bit of an increase. Sodium bisulfite, 3%. They're saying supply and demand, and it's just, everything's going crazy. I can go to some of the line items that are increased. If you look at the line item 52790,
What page are you looking at?
52790.
110? Okay, thank you.
That's rental lease, that's, Craig, I know last year you asked about the sludge contract, so this is probably where you want to perk up. I asked Bob specifically to prep that for you tonight, the sludge contract. Also, if you look over at the column for 2020 actual expended to date, at the time this was printed out, to Mr. Cowie's point earlier, as of March 25th, that number I had Mary run today, as of today, we've spent $127,000 of 130 for sludge removal.
Exactly, Jay. And this increase is to cover the sludge disposable every year because we have to ask Synagro, or now it's New Way, to hold 2 invoices to a total of $20,000 because we haven't budgeted enough money to cover the sludge disposable that we receive at the plant. I'm going to jump to line item 53074, still on page 110.
Lab analysis?
Yes. Again, the testings that we have to do per our NPDES permit, the rising cost of toxicity testing has gone up to $2,265 a test in there quarterly. So all I'm doing is asking enough to cover that. I mean, last year, I forgot what it was. It wasn't that much. I think it was $2,000. But that's all I'm asking for is to an increase to cover the cost for next year. Line item 55010. That is what we did down at the plant last year is we went and got a automated external defibrillator at the plant just in case. So that's basically just a service agreement. We signed that last year. It's $79 a month. They come in and they service it every month, and we don't have to do anything. 55330, that's the same page.
Lab supply, page 111.
Yep. That's just a little increase to cover some antiquated equipment at the plant that we'd like to upgrade. And finally, the last increase in the budget is 55352. And again, this is basically just to cover the chemical costs. If you look at the very last page on 113, I'd like to touch a little bit about the SCADA control system. Basically what that is our heart and soul. Over the last 5 months, we've had it break down 3 times. Very expensive for him to come from West Springfield. It's basically his equipment. It's antiquated, very old, and it's tough to get parts for. If that breaks totally down, we're in trouble. Right now, we're flirting with disaster really bad. We're pins and needles that it doesn't break down. If that goes down, we cannot run the plant. Absolutely not. And we're gonna be polluting the waters, and then that's when we're gonna have DEP and EPA right down our throats. And I'm not kidding you. Just go back and look at what happened to Joe Fijo when he put the dye, he didn't put it in, but he tried to offset it with all the chemical with hypochlorite. They're not nice when it comes to dirtying their waters. So I'm just letting you know that right there hopefully gets passed, because we need it bad. We need it yesterday, to be honest with you. And if it does get approved sooner than the meeting, or if I can get approval to have them build it, because it's gonna be a month and a half for them to build. And if anyone wants to see the system, come on down. Robert, if you wanna elaborate how expensive it was when you've seen it?
Yeah, it's high technology, but as high as it is, it's, you know, at the rate of technology, it's not that high right now. It's had that for how many years?
15.
15 years, so, I mean, it's way beyond its time, and they've had problems with this before. So it's already on its last leg. It's not about to happen. It is happening now, so.
So I'll open up to any questions.
Okay. Robert, did you have anything that you wanted to add that maybe Bob or Jay haven't touched upon?
Not regarding this budget, no.
Okay. I'll put the camera back over here on Bob, and I will open things up to the Board of Selectmen. John, I will start with you. I know you had a question yesterday about the SCADA control system that Bob just talked about, so I don't know if you have any follow-up questions.
Just pretty much that same thing, Bob, is that in the budget is to update the control system, and we're also going to have a study done for the whole plant to determine upgrades going forward. So is there any negative impact by doing the update to the control system within the next year instead of waiting a few years down the road when we have the funding to renovate the whole plant?
Well, yeah, as I stated, I mean, we can't wait. If you want to just push this down like Pittsfield did down the road, go ahead. Ultimately, you guys are going to be responsible. I run the plant, but I'm telling you right now that we need this yesterday.
Understood.
Anything else, John?
All set.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, Bob, lab analysis, are they done by outside labs?
They are. It depends on which we send out. I mean, the toxicity goes out to a lab in Connecticut. That's Phoenix Environmental. The metals are sent out to Phoenix Environmental, yes. Some of the testing is done in-house to save costs. That doesn't have to be certified by a lab technician in our permit.
Okay, so all the lab analyses are certified when you receive them to get a certificate of analysis on them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Joe?
Yes, just a few things. I would be really happy if the control system was revamped or new, because as we all know, machinery only has such a lifestyle, and being a major component, we lose a lot more in finances if it goes when the plant is up and running. So I would be all for that investment. As far as the chemicals, Bob, you said that they've gone up. Has the cost gone up appreciably, or is it just a common, do you believe, jump in prices? And sure, I was wondering if you believe there's any price gouging?
No, not at all.
Okay. And lastly, I think that we have to become creative with the wastewater treatment plant. As we all know that it has a lot more potential for capacity, and it was built back when, you know, there was more going on, and there's a lot of capacity that still can be used in a creative vein. It would be good if we found other ways of getting people into the plant to dispose of their waste. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Joe, we are looking into that with tie and bond.
Right.
I know that I touched base with Jay and Robert that we want to take in septic from other plants. There is a benefit to take it in because we can undercut other companies or towns, because basically all South County goes to Williamstown, the Hoosick Quality District.
Right.
It's large volumes. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit costly for us, but in the end, we should make money.
The plant, as it's currently configured, cannot accept septic in that, a commercial septic in that fashion. So the plant infrastructure has to be reconfigured in order to accept it. So that's a capital cost. So one of the things that Time Bond is looking at is, can we offset the capital cost with the return on investment from accepting commercial septic? So it's not an easy solution, but we think going down the road to try to get the plant to be self-sustainable or sustainable on an enterprise model and off the tax rate, that's definitely a component of it.
And lastly, I was happy to hear Jay talking about trying to get some monies from the COVID-19. I feel that we have to work like hell as a community and get talking immediately to our legislators. And we have a good friend in Congressman Neal, who is head of Ways and Means, and that's a very powerful committee in the House.
Thank you, Joe. Rick?
Okay, I just have one. I'm 99% sure I already know the answer, but is there a way, this is primarily for Jay, that we could use reserve fund now and pay it back with the when the line item is passed in June?
No. Unfortunately not. That would be, if we were to do this now, we would have to do a reserve fund transfer of the $75,000. Once it was approved by the Selectmen and approved by the Finance Committee, then Bob could encumber the funds by ordering the items, but there's no reimbursement provision because we'd be dealing with two different fiscal year budgets. So it would drop the reserve account from its current balance of 165 down to 95.
Right. But now it would basically delay it by a year, because if the amount passes and you don't spend it, it goes back into the stabilization, don't it?
The reserve fund?
Right. Well, the reserve fund goes to stabilization.
Yes.
Now, unexpelled monies from the budget also goes there, doesn't it?
No, it goes into free cash.
Oh, all right.
So this year's free cash was certified after fiscal year 19.
Okay.
It's a good strategy, but I'm pretty sure if Mary was here, she'd be giving me the look. Because I can't say that we necessarily haven't had those conversations.
Called creative accounting.
Yes.
I think we all laughed because we've seen the look. We've been on the receiving end of the look. All right. Rick, anything else?
No, that was all I had.
Okay, thank you. So we'll jump over to the Finance Committee, and I will start with Jay.
All right. Hey, Bob, I just have one question, and I apologize if I completely missed this point here, but the $75,000 for the control system, so you said it takes about a month or so for them to build it. Does that include installation and everything as well, that $75,000?
No, that's why I say it's imperative. We really need to get going with this.
Okay. So all the costs and everything, that's all involved in that $75,000. There wouldn't be any other additional costs or anything?
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you. That's all.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Michelle?
No questions.
Okay. Charles?
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
Since everyone's here tonight, is there any way we can vote on this one line item so we could order it tomorrow? There's no way we can approve this tonight.
Procedurally, it doesn't work that way.
I know it doesn't, but we usually don't have COVID either. This seems kind of an emergency, like an extraordinary item.
Can I jump in?
Tim's gonna jump in.
Even if we voted on this tonight, it's for everything that, begins after July 1st anyway, so it really wouldn't allow us to use anything that we voted on tonight. The only thing we could vote on would be a reserve fund transfer.
Yeah, that's right.
And
All
we
right,
have
that's
to
all
do
I
that,
had.
we're prepared to do it. Right now, the vendor is in touch with Bob, and we're getting along just fine. If we feel that we get to the point where we have a catastrophic failure, we'll spend the money and worry about how we pay for it after to keep the plant operating. We're not in danger. Bob is just trying to make a point that please approve this so that we can replace it.
Yeah,
Well, it obviously
I don't
needs
know.
replacing, that's all.
Right,
yeah.
yes.
I'm scared every day that it's gonna go down. You guys don't realize the severity of that one unit down there.
I don't even think we could vote on a reserve fund transfer because we didn't do a 48-hour posting.
Right.
Not on the agenda, so you
Right.
can, that is.
We could probably do it next week if it had to be, but. Okay. Charles, is there anything else?
No, that was all.
Okay. I think Bob appreciated your enthusiasm to get this
Yeah.
moving though. Carol?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Brian?
No? No
Amy.
comment.
Oh, okay. Amy?
All set, thank you.
Rachel?
Yes, it's just a quick question for Bob. How are the disposable wipes working out? I know in the past we've had lots of issues.
They're worse.
Oh,
Everyone
okay.
being home, we used to take out 2 buckets, 5-gallon buckets at the headworks on the bar rack. We're doing 4 to 5 a day now. It's incredible. Even with all the media from all the other wastewater plants, they just don't understand. They say flushable, but they're not destructible because they get in our system and they just damage it. We have a cutter that is 1/32 between the blades that are constantly taking in that, and they bind up. It'll reverse itself, spit it back out. It'll take a 2x4 and demolish it, no problem, because it's brittle. But you take hair, rubber bands, and these wipes all together, you got a big mess. Big mess. That's why we interact before the Muffin Monster and Macerator to help remove all the eggs.
Is there a way we can communicate to the town? You know, I'm trying to think, do I a Facebook page, ad in the Berkshire Eagle, you know, just food for thought.
Yeah, we've done that in the past. The former administrator, Tony Mizuko, put it out there, and he sent out letters, but it really didn't make any difference. They still kept coming in.
Okay, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. It's a good point to continuous education. Sarah?
So 2 things. So it sounds like if the system goes down, we do sort of have a plan. We can request emergency funds from the reserves, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second thing, back to the wipes, I think, Bob, if you can be as strong in your conviction about how bad and costly that is as you were with the need for the upgrade in the controls, might be some success.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I'll work with Mr. Tolbert on that, and maybe we could put something in the paper and with Jay too.
Yeah, maybe even our friends over at the water department.
A fair point.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Sarah. Okay. Craig?
Yes, I have a quick question on sludge disposal. Is that a multi-year contract? And how is that contract based? Is it based on cubic yardage, tonnage? What's the contract based on?
Wet tons. Right now, we're doing the solids.
Yeah, the solids that are trucked out.
The
how is
solids,
that?
yeah. Our solids, we have a tough time drying out our sludge, but we've been pretty good at it. If we're greater than 14% for the solids, they charge us $126.45 a wet ton. So if we're less than that, they charge us $130.54 a wet ton. I did a little spreadsheet because I had a feeling this was coming. January, and you'll see the increase of disposal. In January, wet tons, we had 100.04 tons at a rate of 126.45. The cost for that, $12,650.06. February's totals, 124.41 at 126.45, $15,731.64. March, 135.47 wet tons at 126.45, $17,130.18. And this is why I want that sludge disposable line item increase, especially with this COVID. It's going up and up and up and up, and I can't control people from flushing. I mean, if you want me and Jay to go and duct tape one of their toilets, I mean, we can't control what people do out there.
Okay, is that a multi-year contract with the cartage company?
Yes, it is. It expires in 2022.
Okay.
January 1st.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Anything else, Craig?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you. John Cowie.
Yeah, no questions. You've answered them all that I did have. Thank you.
Okay. So I will unmute everybody one last time to see if there are any questions that came up as we finalized pages 110, 111, 112, and 113. Are there any additional questions or comments for Bob while he's still here in the room with us? Hearing none, I think we'll move on from the wastewater treatment plant, and thank you to Bob for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Of course. We like seeing you.
Yeah. All right.
You can come to more meetings.
I can?
Yeah, any
I promise?
meeting. That's a promise.
No, we need to stay at the plant.
Sorry. I tried, Bob.
All right.
All right. Thank you again.
Could you let them know that if anyone wants to tour what you have taken,
I have taken.
have them, by all means, get a hold of me. I think it's a good educational thing to understand what actually is going on down there, not just out of sight, out of mind.
I absolutely agree. This is a very large item for us, both on the capital side. It will continue to be as we finalize the capital improvement plan and we begin to have conversations about how we're going to fund that. I can tell the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen tonight that the preliminary estimate from Ty and Bond in order to update the plan is approximately $4.4 million. So we're going to be having to have a conversation at some point when that report is finalized and we have our presentation from Ty and Bond as to how we're going to fund that. You can fund that over a period of years, what are priorities, et cetera. So as we hopefully move away from COVID-19 and get back into normal municipal operations, we'll be talking more about the plan, but that's the figure that we're looking at today. So I would encourage anybody, please do. Bob gives a great overview of wastewater treatment. I can also say this too, I did mention this to the Board of Selectmen, but for our Finance Committee, before COVID-19, we had Ty and Bond. We did a preliminary walk around the plant. Now, Ty and Bond has been our engineers at the plant on and off now for many years. So they have all the plans, the drawings, et cetera. So they're very familiar with it. One of the vice presidents that came up, he had never been inside the plant. He had been in the wastewater engineering role for quite some time. We were upstairs along the belt for us, and we were looking at it, and he took me aside, and he says he's been in hundreds of wastewater treatment plants using a similar process over the years, and he says, hands down, Adams Wastewater is the cleanest and most well-run that he's ever seen. So I think that's a testament to Bob and his staff, although they certainly feel as though they should get a larger chunk out of our budget. We're going to do our best to be reasonable and give them what they need for the plant, but they do a good job for that plant, for that staff, and for what we're able to fund. So I thank Bob and the staff for that. I think that's a pretty good compliment.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And just to let them know that the plant was built in 1962, and there's still a lot of original stuff there. I mean, Rob Nook,
71.
well, yeah, 71, no, I said 62, I don't know. But Rob Nook just came through and gave us the lighting for the LEDs. We actually can see each other now. Well, yeah.
Oh, so it sounds like I should be back for another tour.
Do you want to?
No, because I look in that mirror, it's like, ooh.
No,
Okay.
but I would encourage anybody who's on the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee, if you do have the time, to spend an hour or so over at the plant to get an overview. It's always a good tour. So
Okay.
it's about that time of year. I'm supposed to come over for a tour, huh?
Yep, come on down.
All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Take care.
So Bob exits. We'll ask Tim Coda to come over here. There are some wipes if you wanted to wipe anything down. But happy to have you join us. Because we will dive into the Department of Public Works, and then we'll go into public buildings and property maintenance. So Jay, I will turn things over to you, see if there's an overview.
Sure, we'll give an overview now. So now we're entering the General Department of Works. We'll be dealing here with equipment maintenance, our transfer station, cemetery, parks and grounds, as well as our highway department. So we're going to start on page 92 within your budget binder. Our first subcategory this evening is tree warden. You'll see that that's also line item level funded this year. DPW administration, these are our personnel costs associated with all DPW operations. Detail can be found on page 94. DPW administration does include Mr. Tober as well as the administrative assistant, Marilyn Colas. Level funded on the operating expense side. Personnel services for the Department of Public Works can be found on page 96. With detail on page 97. As I said earlier, this is the actual staff, field staff within DPW. You'll see at the top of the page that we have the chief mechanic and a mechanic on the equipment maintenance division. Our highway our highway division is made up of the operations supervisor, various operators, and a skilled laborer. Cemetery, parks, and recreation division is made up of a working foreman, 3 operators, and then we also have our elected cemetery commissioners at the bottom of that page. We have a grand total of 13 individuals who work in the field under DPW highway. That does not include the wastewater treatment staff. Wastewater treatment staff can be found on page 98. You'll see there that we have the wastewater superintendent as well as the staffing of wastewater. If you're curious as to how those departments look, you should have received today a DPW organizational chart that shows you exactly how the positions are aligned, managed, our continuity program for department leadership, as well as just, some of these people, they're your neighbors, friends, et cetera, and where they kind of fit into the scheme of things. It also includes our buildings and facilities maintenance as well. This budget also includes enough money to fund approximately 7 seasonal workers. We'll see how that goes this year. Our seasonals are usually placed into the flood control areas where we have to maintain vegetation, as well as some of our open spaces, parks, fields, and the cemeteries. We'll see how that goes, but you can see that line item, we did allocate some money for the seasonals this year. Overtime line item is included in here as well. Moving on to page 99, you'll see this is our operating expense for highways. This is where you'll find all of our tools, supplies, and materials, et cetera. We also level funded this. Page 100A is the capital budget request. As I mentioned yesterday, that's for $217,000, and that's going to fund the what's called a I can't think of the term right now, but these are the non-funded costs of doing the Route 8 commercial street project. Mass DOT, federal government will not fund that. We have to fund it. So that's where the capital request lives within the budget. Page 101, unfortunately, I think we're going to get some more snow this weekend. Hopefully we won't have to use any more material, but this is our snow and ice control. You can see once again we've level funded. Tim's shaking his head no.
I think he's not on camera yet.
Not happening. I don't care if the police call, I'm not going.
Page 102, flood control, $600 level funded there. Page 103, another large department budget here, DPW garage equipment maintenance. This handles all the maintenance of our fleet of vehicles for DPW. That also is level funded. On page 105, you'll see the capital budget request. You'll see that we're seeking $13,000 as a capital outlay for a replacement tire machine and balancer. We'll let Tim explain that in a little bit. And we're also looking for $15,000 to renovate our trackless. The place that back in service, we'll also let Tim talk a little bit about that, just so it'll sit there and look pretty. Transfer station can be found on page 106. Transfer station personnel services. This pays for transfer station attendant. We've hired Ray Keel for that position. This is the position, folks, that you may understand is split essentially between the transfer station when the transfer station is operating, and then when the transfer station is not operating, Ray spends his time in public buildings as the assistant custodian. So you'll see on page 107 that his salary is split 60% under the public buildings, property maintenance chapter of the budget, and 40% here under transfer station. Page 108 is our operating expenses for the transfer station. So now we're going to get into a little bit of transfer station finance here. The transfer station has two funding sources. Transfer station is funded underneath the budget. You'll see that we've level funded the budget this year. That pays for mostly the refuse removal of the solids that come out of the plant. All of the recycling comes off the budget. So that line item there of $25,000 is all of the recycling and paper that is removed from the transfer station. The second largest line item 52791, is the fee that the town has to pay to the Northern Berkshire Solid Waste Management District. And then we keep $7,800 in the budget for any engineering costs, because this budget also funds any work that we have to do to the landfill as well. The landfill does require DEP periodic inspections, so we fund it under this line item here. Craig, you had called up earlier in the week and wanted some transfer station data. We are able to do that for you. Today, you should have received transfer station receipt of the revolving fund. So the majority of the costs associated with the transfer station are funded from the revolving fund. The revolving fund is funded by the permit or the sticker receipts, the bag tag sales, and any of our metal scrap as well. So you'll see on that sheet that Mary put together for us, you'll see a 3-year snapshot of what the revolving fund looked like, what charges were made to the revolving fund versus what charges were charged over to the budget side. Because as always, we try to figure out, does the transfer station make money? Does the transfer station pay for itself? Or does the transfer station lose money? That isn't exactly the easiest question to answer. So if you look at the sheet here, you'll see that each year we spend about $60,000, give or take, on our budget, which is on the tax rate, and we also spend a flexible amount of money out of the revolving fund. So we try as hard as we can to use that revolving fund, but we still have some hard costs over on the budget side. I'm going to stop there because I think it's probably better just to have anyone ask questions about that. We can drill down based on questions, but that is a very quick and academic explanation of how we work the transfer station. Also provided today is a 3-year snapshot of our sticker sales. So as of fiscal year 2020, we have sold 658 permit stickers for the transfer station, earning $30,900 in revenue. We've sold 9,566 bag tag stickers for a cost of earnings of $11,479. Year to date, the revolving fund has earned $42,379. Now, keep in mind, when you look at these numbers, this is provided by the collector's office, and you look at Mary's sheet that she did. If you're buying a transfer station permit and you're on top of this, you're probably buying it for fiscal year 20 at the end of fiscal year 19. So that cost goes into fiscal year 19. So you can't necessarily look at this purely as that is. It kind of all flows into it. So just keep that in mind. But it gives you a pretty good snapshot. We also can provide you tonight with some rates that we pay, but I'll hold off to see if anyone has any questions on that, and we'll talk about exactly what we pay to remove anything from the transfer station. Moving on off the transfer station, we'll go to page 114 in your budget book. That's titled Wastewater Collection. Wastewater collection is all of the series of pipes and manholes and sanitary sewer system that feeds the plant. Move on to page 115, Cemetery, Parks, and Grounds. And on page 117, we have our capital budget request for that. You'll see this year we're seeking $8,000 for a brush mower, as well as some mobile equipment replacement. Those would be your weed whippers, et cetera, that we use around that get heavy use. And the Russell Fieldhouse remodel repaint, as I explained last night, we budgeted $25,000 in there aspirationally with the thought that we'll use it in order to remodel that. The entire renovation or reconstruction, I should say, the field house was pushing about $100,000, and we didn't feel that that was an appropriate amount of money to spend on that this year, unfortunately, but we wanted to keep some money in there. Again, whether or not we spend that now to remodel it, or whether we try to limp along for another year or two and get the whole thing rebuilt under a grant program is yet to be discussed, but we are asking for that amount of money to be allocated this year. And then lastly, we have our celebration seasonal. These are the banners that are put up on Park Street and other areas of downtown. That too is level funded, and I believe that is the end of the budget pages. And I think it's probably just best at this point to look it up. There's a lot here.
Robert, did you have anything to add at this point before I open it up to questions?
No, I don't think so. There's a lot there, so they covered it pretty well.
There is definitely a lot there. So with that, again, we're looking at pages 92 through 108 and 114 through 118. I will open questions up to the Board of Selectmen first, and I will start with John Duvall.
I'm good.
You're good? All right. Jim?
Yeah, this is for Jay. Jay, we are going to have seasonal help this year?
As of right now, we've hired one seasonal employee. We're going to take it one day at a time to see how our budget performance looks before we add on additional seasonal. Tim beat me up pretty good and let him hire one person.
I just have a question now. The seasonal help usually is up the cemetery mowing, and our cemeteries are usually really pristine with 13 employees out there trying to rebuild manholes and other work that's got to be done in the warm seasons. We have $425,000 of perpetual care that's supposed to take care of the mowing up there. So couldn't we hire the seasonal help to mow the cemetery and take that out of perpetual care?
Perpetual care funds can't only be spent up to a certain % of that amount of money. So we're talking more like $19,000. And yes, we are looking into doing that. Because if it comes down to laying off a full-time employee versus seasonals, I will choose a seasonal probably each and every time. So what we're trying to do is we have the money budgeted, and we're going to go as carefully as we can. The other predicament that we don't want to be in, Jim, is to hire a bunch of guys, have them working, and then have to say, hey, sorry, you may have passed up some other opportunities. We have to lay you off now because of budget performance. So yes, we have to find a balance between providing a level of service and also being conservative in terms of what we're spending. And Tim does a pretty good job of beating me up about it.
Good for Tim. Okay, thank you, Jay.
You're welcome.
Joe?
Yes, I have some questions. As far as the tree warden, with the advent of the emerald ash borer that's going to take all the ash trees, I don't know about our roadside corridors, how many of them are bound with ash trees, but that's something that's going to come to light very quickly because the ash borer, emerald ash borer, is already in Adams, and you can see it if you walk into the woods. Another thing, too, the flood control. The Army Corps of Engineers is very difficult to deal with. They're a strong-minded bunch, but we use so much of our summer help, going along there and weed whacking. I thought a good idea on the banks of it if someone could speak with the Army Corps of Engineers and see if they would tolerate putting native plants along the bottom part going up a certain way where you're going to get water flow. And that may cut back on the need for so much to be done along there. I don't know if that's doable, but I've heard of places doing such a thing. And the next thing I'm going to get onto, and this is something I've been, alluding to for a long time with the environment being close to my heart. When it comes to the use of road salts, it is a big budget item, and from year to year, depending on the severity of the winter, we don't really know how much road salt we're going to use. And a little lesson in water chemistry. There are a lot of studies out, the effects of road salt on water bodies, wetlands, rivers, and people's personal drinking sources if they have wells. Quickly, with the chemistry of road salt, when it dissolves, it splits into both sodium and chloride, and it washes away in rivers and streams. The chloride, in particular, doesn't get filtered out naturally by soils, and it accumulates in waterways. And we have so many direct inlets to our rivers that goes directly into it. And we've become addictive to salt, not just our community, but all throughout the country in the last 50 years, once they found that, sodium chloride will melt, snow and make your roads clear. And as a selectman, I know public safety is top in my agenda, but I think we've got to find a way to work as a community and a town to kind of work to stop putting so much salt on the roads. And it's a big budget buster. And we have found times that after the year was over, we've had to appropriate, and we needed emergency funds to cover. And we haven't had that bad of winters in the last few. And I was just wondering, did we spend all the money that was appropriated for road salt?
Robert, did you want to?
Yeah, I think we did, but we still have quite a reserve in the shed, I believe.
Yes, it's basically full.
Yeah, we did spend it, but we do have a full shed, unfortunately.
Yeah, because one thing I've learned in my schooling is that the environment can't talk for itself. And we have to have spokesmen for it because water is a necessity in our life, and we have to do what we need to do to make sure that we protect it. And waterways, it's just such a part of the planet, and I just worry very much about the use of salts. Now there are spreaders they're very expensive, but they are computerized. Because I think now you probably have settings on the spreaders where you can, set them at a certain amount, but I don't know. I just worry about the use of road salt and the amount of money it's costing us. I can't come up with a conclusion. Chemists have been trying to find ways to do away with road salt with very little success. So that's basically all that I have to say on the budget, but I'm going to keep on harping about the salt because I don't think people realize what it's the severity that it puts on wetland areas and any river, or just as I mentioned before, and I'm not going to ramble on for the course of time, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Joe, and I know that our DPW is staying on top of that. I believe that they've gone to some different seminars and workshops on the use of road salt versus sand and so forth, and I think Robert has also attended even since being on board. So I know it is something that they have heard you say, and they are paying attention. But thank you for the reminder. Rick, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Okay. Then I will switch over to the Finance Committee, and I will start with Jay.
No questions here.
Okay. Michelle?
Just a quick question on the transfer station, the personal services. Why is there such an increase in workers' comp and health insurance there?
We added a full-time employee.
Right, perfect.
Okay. Anything else, Michelle?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Charles?
No questions.
Okay. Carol?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
No questions. Thank you.
Rachel?
All set. Thanks.
Okay. Sarah?
All set.
Okay. Craig?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Number one, we're spending $25,000 for rental on a stump grinder for the transfer station. Why aren't we collecting money for brush brought into the transfer station? They do in North Adams. It's $6 a pickup load. You have to go over the scale. Now, we haven't got a scale, but we certainly can. The guy's got a pickup load of brush. It's $6. I don't know if commercial guys are dumping brush in there or not, but we're trying to run a transfer station and keep it revenue neutral, and we got a $25,000 bill. So I guess my question is, why don't we charge for that brush? That's number one.
Okay, I'll stop you there and get an answer for you.
Greg, I agree 110% with you, and my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, along with DPW this year, will be to figure out a way no longer to accept brush. If we are to accept brush, we have to find a way to have an additional charge, as you are suggesting, but with that comes some logistical concerns. Unlike North Adams, which I operated the transfer station up there for several years, it's not a perfect setup by any means, but you have the trailer, you have the scale house, you have the scale, and you can measure or somehow articulate well exactly what's coming into the facility. For us, we have one attendant working, and usually brush is measured in yards. You could dump a yard of manure on me, and I wouldn't know if it's a yard or two. So that's one of the issues, and also we don't really have a secure way, frankly, of handling money. If we talk to the treasurer collector about it, she gets all jittery because the person has to be bonded, etc. So we have to come up with a better way to do it. But I concur, it's a cost. That $25,000 cost for essentially a one-time tub grinder rental really kind of gets me going. But we don't have any other good way to get rid of it. In fact, Tim and I did speak today about trying to come up with some other way of doing it. But that's a conversation we're going to have in terms of a policy. Do we want to continue accepting brush? And essentially you can say it's going to cost us $25,000 as a result of accepting that.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you.
My second question is, I didn't get the spreadsheet for this year yet. Apparently it didn't get to me in the mail, and I was a little late asking for it, so it's not really anybody's fault. But I'm looking at the 2019 spreadsheet. I believe I got it from you. I don't believe I got it from Tony.
If you're looking at that from last year, Craig, those numbers are all wrong. Those were estimated, and the source of the data source of those numbers were off.
Okay.
Just be careful how you're going to use it, that's all.
What is our deficit?
Well,
excluding the stump grinder, how much is it costing us to run the transfer station?
Well, you can say that it definitely costs us $60,000 because that's what we budget for on the tax rate. So if you look at the transfer station operating costs, you've got personnel services, which is the attendant, so you have to have it manned. So that's a cost that's included in there, and you can just include that 60 or that 40%, however it's split. Then you're going to look at your operating expenses of the transfer station itself. So I guess you could say we don't have to belong to the Northern Berkshire Solid Waste District. That's a policy decision, again, for the Board of Selectmen to make. So let's just talk about that $25,000. That $25,000 we definitely pay. That's what it costs to remove the recycling from the transfer station. However, the cost is directly relatable to Northern Berkshire Solid Waste because they negotiate the price, and we get the pricing because we're in a consortium with other municipalities. So it's fair to say that if we were alone, the price would probably be higher. But I think it's fair to say that, it definitely costs us, just rounding up here, $60,000 to run it. If you look, when you get that packet of information, you're going to see that out of the revolving fund, we spend out of the revolving fund fiscal 19, it depends. I don't even want to quote some of these numbers because it's better for you to look at them. But essentially, it's anywhere from $16,000 to $31,000 a year that we spend. So because that's a revolving fund, you can't say that it's allocated, money. It pays, that portion of it pays for itself. But yet there's an additional amount of money that we have to continue to budget for. Mary and I, if you were to use these numbers as they existed today, if you took the $24,000 that we've spent so far in fiscal year 20 to remove the recycling from the transfer station that's paid for out of the tax rate funded budget line item and moved it over to the revolving fund, it would almost pay for itself, but it would require a requisite increase in the permit fee. So right now we're at $50, which frankly is a bargain. If we shifted the cost of removing the recycling off the budget and into the revolving fund, like Robert and I talked about tonight, we have to figure out exactly what does that translate into an increase on the permit side. However, to complicate matters even more, and Jim may want to jump in at some point, we're at the end of the existing contract for solids and recycling removal under NBSW. So they are in the middle, the commission is in the middle of renegotiating that contract. So we don't know what it's going to cost us to remove the MSW and the recycling for next year. So it's almost at a point where we have to stop, wait until that contract is negotiated, and take a look at it again and do an analysis and say, what is it going to cost us? That's the best way I can answer that question for you. I'd say it's probably split 50-50. It pays 50% of itself, and 50% of it's still on the budget.
Craig,
Okay, I think that answers the question. I got one last thing.
Wait, Craig, before you go to that question, Jim did want to just comment. So I'm gonna
Okay.
let Jim comment. Go ahead.
Yes, right now we have Kessler Consulting negotiating with, geez, I can't think of the name of the company now. with our haulers right now anyway. Casella, thank
Oh,
you.
wait.
Kessler is negotiating with Casella, who is the only hauler in the area. So it's like beating a dead horse. So they're doing the best they can to try to get our costs down. You got to remember also, from now on, we're paying prevailing wage. This year was $40. Next year it's going to be $48.13. The year after it's going to be $48.93. The year after that it's going to be $49.43. If we were to go and haul curbside by ourselves, we would have to pay prevailing wage per hour for these people to pick up, which would be a huge cost to us.
Well,
So,
my concern is this. My concern is we have a duplication of services 2 miles down the road in North Adams. And I gotta believe it would be cheaper to try to negotiate something with North Adams and get out of the trash business and still provide the taxpayer with the ability to do his recycling, bring his trash. I know North Adams is $85 compared to $50, but the place is open 6 days a week. It's sort of a wash. Have we looked at trying to save some money by consolidation?
I think that's probably going to be a conversation, Craig, we are going to have based on the economics and the finances of waste hauling. But I think before we have that conversation, we want to get pricing. Because if that happens, we get out of Northern Berkshire Solid Waste Management District probably, and it would be some policy changes that the Board of Selectmen really need to look at. But I think you are ahead of the curve in terms of what type of conversation you might be needing to have. Because the the shared services model works in some respects. It works for veteran services. We're looking at, I didn't mention it tonight, but we are looking at that for Council on Aging. And perhaps this is another model. But there's too many moving parts right now, but that's where I think we might be going.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Craig?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you. John Cowie?
No questions.
Okay. So before we move on to public buildings and property maintenance, last call to anybody who has any comments or questions about the Department of Public Works. Again, the pages were 92 through 108 and 114 through 118. Is there anybody on the call who has any questions or comments?
Yes, this is Joe Novak. Just one quick question. I was wondering, what are you using a stump grinder for up at the transfer station? What I know of stump grinders, having used them, is you cut down a tree, and in order to save your chainsaw from hitting the ground, and people like to have the trunks removed so that, you know, they get below grade and they can have, you know, plant grass and the like. So what is a stumper being used for up at the transfer station?
Actually, Joe, this is Tim. It's not a stump grinder, it's a tub grinder.
Okay. Okay, so it's not a stump grinder because I just couldn't visualize what you would be using it for. And lastly, I'm not familiar with all the members of the Finance Committee, so the next round, could people state their names? I know most of the people, but I don't know all of them, so when I hear just the first name, of some of the members of the Finance Committee, I don't know who they are.
Certainly, Joe, and I will also make sure that I circulate the list of the Finance Committee members and the full Board of Selectmen to both groups so that we are aware of who's on the call. That's a very fair point. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is
Hearing
Charles.
none, go ahead. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, after we get done grinding all the brush, what are you going to do with it?
It'll be left in place to decompose for loam, things of that nature.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll close Department of Public Works, and we will move on to public buildings and property maintenance. I will turn things back over to Jay, or Robert.
Thank you. I thank Bob, but I'm also going to thank him because I'd be remiss, but if you've noticed
I can't do it.
here,
Go.
we're not.
Go downstairs. I can't do it. You're going to have to go downstairs.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Cowie. I didn't mute you.
We are not looking for any large equipment this year, purchases, but our fleet is in good shape, and I'd like to thank Tim and John Shafrick and Adam Mezwar in our maintenance garage. They do a great job of keeping those vehicles up and keeping our fleet going, and because of their strict maintenance regime, that's why we're not coming before you this year to ask you for a new replacement vehicle at DPW. That was the MO moving forward, even before COVID-19 hit. But I go down to the garage frequently. I ride around when I can, not as much lately as I'd like, but I'd like to thank Tim and everybody for taking care of the trucks and having a lot of pride. In Route 8 in the morning when I come up, there's usually the fleet coming south on Route 8 from all of our neighboring municipalities with the hot boxes in tow because it's pothole season. And maybe I'm prejudiced, but to me, the best-looking vehicles are always the ones that have the town of Adams seal on the side of the door. So, Tim, thank you, and thank the guys for me. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, you're free to go.
You're released. Hereby released.
We appreciate that you were here.
Thank you very much.
Any
Thank you.
questions? Yeah.
So, for our new Finance Committee members, our public buildings and property maintenance, that lives under DPW. We're going to start on page 83 of our budget book, and we're going to start with the Registry of Deeds building. Not a lot of folks recognize that this building is owned by the town. It's the former town hall prior to the Plunkett Mansion being placed into service for our flagship building, but we still do own that building. It is currently housed by is currently occupied by the Registry of Deeds, and then our police headquarters is kind of built in, obviously, to the back of it. So Registry of Deeds maintenance budget, you can see, is level funded again this year. Also, you may have read in iBerkshire's article about a wheelchair accessibility, an accessibility list that we're trying to install at the front of the building. There were some comments made underneath that article by the general public asking essentially why would we spend the money to do that for a building that doesn't seem to get a lot of use anymore. I can answer that question in two ways. One, federal law, Massachusetts law as well, Architectural Access Board regulations, and lastly, full universal use of that building. We anticipate, being a lawyer, I can tell you a lot of the deed research now is being done electronically. So at some point, I would assume that the Commonwealth is going to probably merge those registry of deeds together, and it's quite possible we're going to lose our tenant. When that day comes, we want to be sure that that building is in at least a state of good repair and take a look at it and decide what we want to do. But making it accessible formally was something that we wanted to try to do. And Donna is still working on that project to try to get that done. But COVID-19 and the escalating cost of construction has really hampered that. So that's another project that we have going on with the Registry of Deeds. Turning the page to 84. You'll see this is our operating expense budget for Town Hall. That too is level funded again. Page 86 is our general public buildings and property maintenance budget here for personal services. This contains the detail on page 87. So this is Kyle Wilson, our full-time custodian, who handles all of our custodial services in all of our public buildings. And also this is the 60% allotment for Ray Keel, who we hired, I believe, I want to say we brought Ray on sometime in either late 19 or early 20. It's kind of been a whirlwind. But again, Ray's salary, to Michelle's question earlier, Ray's salary is split 60% and 40%. We pay 60% out of this section of the budget. Moving on to page 88, our public buildings and property maintenance operating expense budget. This is where our electricity lives. I'd like to point out to you on this page that we do budget for $140,000 for all of our electrical accounts within the municipal stable of buildings. You'll note that as of March 25th, we only spent $78,650. I do not have a current figure for you to tell you exactly how much we've spent, but because of the solar field up on East Road by the by the covered landfill, the old landfill, that generates credits. We've been able to apply those credits to these accounts. So that's why we haven't spent as much on electricity. However, that depends on how much sun we get. So we try to keep money just in case, so we're not in the red if that plant doesn't generate the credits. But that's why you might see the difference in the two figures there. We've also actually reduced this by $2,800 this year. Page 89 is the community center building. Mr. Cowie, your neighbor. As you know, the youth center has left that. So right now we've reduced this budget tremendously. The building is secured. It is not heated presently. However, it does have fire protection and electricity to it. Adams Memorial can be found on page 90. You'll see that this is also level funded as well for that building. And we do have the current HVAC project going on. We anticipate that project should be wrapping up, we think, hopefully by the end of this month, end of May, and that will now formally condition and heat the gymnasium, lobby area, and select offices and restrooms surrounding the gymnasium in that first area. That's just a quick snapshot of what's going on at Adams Memorial. That concludes this section of the budget, and I'll turn it back over to Christine or Robert. Robert, if you want to add anything?
Robert, do you have anything?
There's a little, on the registry of deeds, we had some repairs done to the roof there, and that's still in progress, but we did have some repairs there because of the ongoing leaks for quite some time, and that was about it on that building, so that's about all I have.
Okay. All right. So I will open things up to first the Board of Selectmen to ask any questions regarding the public buildings and property maintenance budget items. John Duvall, I will start with you.
No questions.
Okay. Thank you, John. Tim?
I have nothing.
Joe?
Yeah, a few quick questions, please. I know that we had two bids out to do the work on the Registry of Deeds, and they both came over budget. And what have you decided to do? I know that it's receiving an email that perhaps we're going to have to wait because we won't have the extra funds to pitch in for what we need. And what is your thinking about that?
We're going to request the Massachusetts Office of Disability, MOD, to extend the $80,000 grant beyond the closure date of June 30th for another year, and we're going to bid it out again and see what we get for bids considering the changing economic environment. But we're going to try to move ahead and get that project accomplished.
Okay, is there any timeline to get it, as you mentioned, which is a very important point, that the accessibility, the federal law, is that going to be something that's going to come to the forefront first, or are we going to wait and rebid everything?
We're hoping to have the project completed by the end of this calendar year, December 2020.
Okay, and my last question has to do with the Memorial School. I've been up there a few times and walked through and see what has been going on. And will we still need to use the outside gas blower to heat part of the building during the winter months?
The only reason why we would need to use that, Joe, is if the decision is made to stabilize the environment in the classroom wing. All the other portions of the building, with the exception of the auditorium, will have the RTUs or rooftop units installed. So we'll just have to decide if we want the cafeteria, first level, in the classroom wing heated. I would probably make the recommendation no, in order to save the costs, but I don't want to do that without talking with Jerry and Robert and Donna first.
And lastly, Erica, during her presentation, wanted to know they need bigger space. And I know there's been some talk, nothing really concrete about the Council on Aging or to relocate to that area. And I was wondering, has there been any conversations going on about that possibility?
Conversations are always happening about the possibility. The biggest factor to that is the building as it is now stands is not suitable to hold the Council on Aging. We have to, flooring, windows, ceilings, lighting, and paint. Nothing insurmountable, but it's still a cost. And personally, I would like to have that conversation as a shared services model with other municipalities, because the one thing that Erica didn't mention is when she says she gets a lot of requests for help, folks are coming in, their zip code isn't always with Adams. But she's a social service professional and a kind heart, and she tries very hard not to say no to people, but we know that we're serving folks from outside the jurisdiction, which is justification to have that shared services model, and we think that that portion of the building could really be a nice shared services center. However, further complicating, because God knows there's no issue that we have that's not complicated, as you know, we had an RFP out for the reuse of Memorial School. The initial concept and the primary concept is for the town to retain control and ownership of the auditorium, gymnasium, and that section of the building, and then privatize, put on the tax roll, the classroom portion of that building in some type of housing configuration. We had a successful walkthrough. We had, Donna can tell you for sure next week when she speaks, but I want to say we had 4 or 5 contractors. There was interest. We were fielding questions. COVID-19 hit, and we received a couple of inquiries from probably the top 2 leading contractors that said, we'd really like you to extend the RFP out further in order to give us more time to look at this. We think that is in the town's favor to do that. So Donna and I just spoke, what's today, Thursday? Probably Tuesday sometime or Monday afternoon, and we're likely to extend that RFP, Joe, out until September. So the other thing that's complicating that is, what do we do if a vendor, a contractor comes in and says, I really like the building, I want the whole building, and it's going to be on the tax rate. We're going to privatize it and we're going to put it on there. We have to have a conversation as a board of selectmen to say, what's the highest and best use? What do we want to do? So it's kind of again, it's a parallel track. It could go either way.
And just lastly, I think that cafeteria is quite valuable. I'm sure there have to be quite a few upgrades, but if the Council on Aging did go there, that would be a lot easier for food to be prepared, and maybe perhaps even a lot better for the different types of food that could be served. But that's just speculation on my part, but I think that that's of some value in that building.
There is. You're absolutely correct about that. However, unfortunately, there's an accessibility issue with that portion of the building because the elevator shaft is located in the classroom wing away from it. So it's accessible from the Park Street side.
Columbia Street side.
Yes, the Columbia Street side. We'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
But that's part of the issue with that building configuration.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Rick?
Nothing?
Nothing, all right. So I will mute the Board of Selectmen for now, and we will move on to the Finance Committee. Jay Mezwar.
No questions.
No questions. Michelle Butler.
No questions.
Charles Foster.
Yes, I have one.
Certainly.
On page 86.
86.
Yeah.
Yep.
It looked like Ray Keel's amount is missing. His 60%, whatever's supposed to be in here. It's not included throughout the whole line. The salary, the health.
Well, that's part of the 49,540.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is included.
It's a-
Don't look at the first line, look only at the second line under him. I was doing this math myself, that's how I figured it out. The first line by his name is, I think, his combined
Yes.
between the two.
That is correct.
The one underneath is the one that's pertaining to that, but this budget.
Tim, you are correct.
Charles, did you get
Well, the
that?
17,389, that's him? Is that his, the 17,000?
Yep.
Okay,
17 and 32 is
Yeah.
a 49.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions?
No,
Charles? Okay,
no, I'm good.
thank you. Carol Cushionetti?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Brian Johnson?
Yes, on page 84,
84?
Town Hall, item 54,390, elevator maintenance.
Mhm.
Is that figured in also with the Adams Visitor Center? Or is that completely separate, or have you merged the two contracts, or what?
We merged them all, Brian. You're on the right track. What we did is we've got 3 different types of contracts out there. One for the Renfrew Fieldhouse, which is nothing more than a wheelchair lift. That requires, that's minimal maintenance, so that's separate from it. Then we have police station, town hall, visitor center, library, all on one contract that's identical.
Okay.
And then Adams Memorial is on a separate contract. What we did was, is we took all of the individual line items that pertain to elevator maintenance, added them up, and in total, that was the number I worked with to beat up the elevator companies and said, don't exceed that number, and that's what we got. So that's why
Okay.
you don't see the number increased. Why they're different from building to building, I really don't know. That's just a legacy number. But we did not increase any of the elevator line items despite the new contract, and we got a little bit better coverage. Of course, the
Good.
last time the elevator guy was here, the work that needed to be done wasn't covered because it was hydraulic oil, but nonetheless, you know, that's the world of elevators.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Amy Kupiec?
No questions, thank you.
Rachel Tomkowitz?
I'm all set, thank you.
Sarah Klein?
Not a question, but a comment, or
Certainly.
maybe clarification on the ramp for, the Registry of Deeds.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just the ramp?
It is not a ramp, it is a lift.
Okay.
So when you walk in that lobby, Sarah, so that front, you know how it's kind of got it already has a ramp? You know, when you walk down the sidewalk, it's already kind of got that bubble in front of it? So
Yeah.
that was step 1 that was done several years ago. Step 2, the building is really nice, and when you walk in, you've got that first kind of foyer, couple of steps, then you walk up to another landing, and then there's doors, and then you're in the building. The lift is to get you up over that threshold and into the building. However, again, nothing is easy. You have to take walls down, you have to move doors. We don't want to get rid of the transom and the doors in there. We've tried to preserve some of the architectural aspects of the building, and it's not a clean project.
So it's more of a mechanical.
Yes. Do you ever see those commercials for the stair lift thing that, you know, you install it on the side of the stairs and it goes up and it kind of flips up?
Yeah.
It's an item like that.
Okay. I was thinking if it were, ramp related, buildable, to mind, but all right, I understand now.
Yeah, and believe it or not, we actually had that, I forgot who asked that question the other day, when we were talking about the project. Building the concrete zigzag ramp would actually be more money than installing the lift, even under this fashion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Craig Corrigan?
No questions right now.
Okay. Appreciate that. And it looks like John Cowie, oh wait, he might be. John Cowie, is that you? Are you back in? Mr. Cowie? Somebody said, no, they just dropped. Okay. I will unmute everybody and see if there are any final questions. In the public buildings property maintenance section, again, these are pages 83 through 90. We have here with us Robert Tober, our DPW director, who can answer any last burning questions that anybody might have.
Yeah, this is Joe Novak. I don't have a question, but I want to wish all the ladies there a happy Mother's Day.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Yes, I have a question. Craig Corrigan.
Yep.
It doesn't really apply to what we're talking, but I got to ask this while I got a chance. When will we get the Adams Cheshire Regional budget? I have the McCann budget, but I do not have the Adams Cheshire Regional budget.
Should be in there.
Should be in your budget book, so if it's not.
It's not in my budget book.
Okay. Okay, we will get a copy of it to you. Is there anybody else missing the Adams Cheshire Regional School District budget?
Looking for it. Yeah, I'm missing it also.
Mine's missing. Carol.
Okay.
It should say,
This is
appendix
Michelle. I
G.
don't think it's in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you might have to just look a little harder.
Yeah, I got the McCann budget.
It says appendix
I think
G.
I think it's right after mine is right after the McCann budget. They blend.
No way. Mine's not.
Okay. So Tim, you have yours?
Looking for it.
Appendix G, right?
Yeah, it has like a reddish heading, reddish brick color heading that helps people. It's
Okay,
the
I have
last
it.
thing in your
All right.
book, if that helps.
Last 3 pages, 3 or 4 pages. Okay, thank you.
Got it.
This budget is only 5 pages long? Is that what I'm...
That is correct.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. I guess we're not going to get a lot of information from this budget.
No, I guess not. Very bare bones.
I don't know how we're supposed to vote on this.
Well, they have shown us the assessment for fiscal 2020 and fiscal 2021. They have a 5-year budget history here in front of us with their expenditures, their revenue. It does appear that there's an awful lot of information here, and we will have the superintendent of Adams Cheshire as well as the superintendent of McCann with us on Wednesday evening to review their budget. If you do if you have any information, if you need information prior to Wednesday.
I'd like to know how much they put into their stabilization fund this year, and I'd like to know what their total expenditure for property maintenance is for both the schools.
So, Mr. Corrigan, if you could send an email to Tim Burdick, that would be great, and he would get that information for you before Wednesday.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay?
Also, yeah, Brian Johnson here. Yeah, I'd also like to know the declining student enrollment that they have there and the average cost per student.
So, Brian, I'm going to ask that you also send an email to Tim, who will get that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Could this information be provided to everyone?
It will be provided when we receive it, yes.
See, all I have is a cover for the Adams, Cheshire, and McKean. I don't have budgets for either or.
Should be in the back of your book. This one
Yep,
is
that's
the
all I have is page 119, 120. 120 is McCann Regional, the cover letter, and 119 is the Adams Cheshire Regional.
Okay. Then we'll get you a copy. Okay? Deb, you're still on the line. Can you, see about getting, Jim a copy when you're back in the office on Monday? I'd appreciate that. Any other questions about public buildings and property maintenance? Hearing none, I'll close that portion of the budget discussion. And as you've all alluded to, we will be meeting with the 2 school districts on Wednesday. The meeting time is 5:30. We will start with the McCann budget, and then we'll move on to the Hoosick Valley Regional School District's budget. A reminder that if you have any questions, any information that you are looking for prior to that meeting, or for them to present at that meeting, if you could please email your respective chair, and we will work with the appropriate staff. And is there anything else that you have?
I do not.
Okay. And so you're all unmuted at this point. Is there anything else that we haven't covered?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so I have a motion from Jim.
Motion seconded. Motion seconded.
First, that's the Board of Selectmen, so that's Jim making a motion for the Board of Selectmen. I need a second selectman.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rick. And so, all in favor from the Board of Selectmen, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. I saw all of your bubbles light up, so I appreciate that. And from the Finance Committee,
I'll ask for a motion. Meeting?
sorry, Kim was asking.
Rachel will make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second, Carol.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we are adjourned. We will see you all
See you next
on
week.
Wednesday, or talk to you on Wednesday. See you next week. Thank you.
Okay.